Welcome to pattern making class. This is Annette Jouy, and today we are working on our trouser draft. And we have completed several steps so far, including the side seam grain line, our waist, hip, crotch, knee, and ankle level. And then we drew the back and front boxes, and I started working on the front crotch extension. We're now going to work on our back crotch extension. So this is our crotch extension. We're going to measure from our side seam to our center back. We know this is 10.5 inches. You take half of that measurement, bring that line out, and draw the end 5 1/4. Okay, this is our back crotch extension and our front crotch extension. So now we're going to continue to work on our back crotch curve. So we're going to draw a box that is 2 inches by 2 inches in the corner. And then I want you to draw a bias line. And then on that bias line, I want you to come out 2 inches. Now grab your hip curve. Go ahead and draw your crotch line from the center back line where I have the X down to the line that I've gone up 2 inches. There we go. Okay, we've drawn that line. Now we're going to flip our ruler and we're going to come back the opposite direction with it, and we're going to blend a nice continuous line there. So spend a moment getting that perfect curve. And there's our back crotch extension. Draw a notch on either side of the line that you drew bias. Okay, and these are our notches, 1/4 inch away. Double notches denotes back. Now we're going to go ahead and work on our waist. And we're going to add some darts. And we are going to adjust the waist a little bit as we work with it. So our front waist measurement is 7 3/4. So our front waist, 7 3/4 of an inch, and our back waist is 7 inches. Back waist, 7 inches. Well, we also want to be able to breathe in our waist measurement too. So we're going to add 1/4 inch to each one of the waists. Plus, we're also going to add darts. So our front waist, we're going to add plus 1/4 inch ease, right? Just like I have the ease up here in the hip. But then I'm going to add a 1/2 inch for a dart, and another 1/2 inch for another dart. Okay, so I'm adding this all together, and I have 9 inches. That's going to be my total waist, including 2 1/2 inch darts, 1/4 inch ease, and the 7 3/4 that the dress form is, or sportswear form in our case. So here in the back, we're starting with the back waist measurement, just like up here I have the back hip, right? We're adding 1/4 inch ease, just like I have 1/4 inch ease up here in the back hip. But then we're adding darts to the back waist, plus 1 inch dart, plus 1 inch dart. They're big darts. Okay, so we've got 7, 8, 9 1/4. And that is our back waist measurement. So we're going to start in the front, and we're going to plot out our waist, and I'm going to show you how you can adjust this a bit for personal fit. So quite often in the front, I like to off-center this by about 1/4 inch. It makes a nice little angle, right? Or you can do this straight, and those are 2 options that we can do with our waist in our front. In the back, it's also nice to bring this in about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 and angle that that makes a nice back. So in the front, we're going to start either at center front or by using that 1/4 of an inch. And notice I have a pencil now because I'm going to be changing my mind and moving things around. So we're first going to plot our first dart, which is a 1/2 of an inch. And we have to go ahead and decide where that's going to be, right? So quite often it's on our princess seam. And your princess seam can be anywhere from 2.5 to 2 3/4 to 3 inches away from the center front. So 2 3/4 is where I'm going to start. And I'm going to plot my first dart at a 1/2 of an inch. And then the space in between the darts is 1 1/4. Now I have another dart, which is 1/2 of an inch. Okay, so here's my 1/2 inch dart. Here's my 1/2 inch dart. The space in between is 1 1/4. I went from center front over 2 3/4. 2 3/4 to my first dart. Okay, now where I'm trying to get is at 9 inches. So all of that, when we plot this all out, our 9 inches, including that ease, ends up being here. About 1 inch away from the side seam. And then that would allow for a pretty curvy hip. Okay? But maybe you don't want the hip that curvy. Maybe it's not going to match the back. In that case, we'd start our center front waist a 1/4 inch away and plot it all out, and then our side seam would move over a 1/4. But for now, I'm just going to leave that, and we're going to go on and look and see what's happening with the back. We're going to take our back measurements and apply those. So this is the center back waist. We're going to go over 3/4 of an inch to off center, and look, this is going to give it a nice angle. Our back rise is going to look like this. Okay, so we're going to go over 3/4 of an inch first to start. Then we're going to do our princess seam, which is 2 3/4. We're going to mark that. Now we're going to mark a 1 inch dart. Now we have a space 1 1/4 inches in between our 1 inch darts. Now we have our second 1 inch dart. And then we have the remainder to the side seam. So our total back waist is 9 3/4, including the 7 inches that we need off the dress form or sportswear form, the 1/4 inch of ease, and the 2 1 inch darts. So from 3/4 of an inch offset, where does 9 3/4 end up being? Well, ends up being here. About a 1/2 of an inch away from the waist. And our front waist is, this is 1 inch away in the front. And so what we would have is a very shallow curve here. Hardly any of a curve. I can even draw it, right? Hardly any of a curve here, and a much more hippie curve on the front. So right now that tells me that I want to take my center front, and I'm going to offset that about 1/4 of an inch. Right? I'm going to move everything over so that my side seams are going to become a little bit more matching. And this is a great tool to use for personal fit, because we all have such different shapes. So here in the front now, I know I'm going to start 1/4 of an inch away from the center front, and then that line is going to come down and connect with my X. I've confirmed it. And I'm going to commit to the measurements that I came up with. 2 3/4 of an inch to my princess seam. 1/2 inch for my first dart. 1 1/4 inch for the spacing in between the darts. 1/2 inch for my second dart. And then let's see where the total of the waist, 9 inches, is. We know we've moved that over Now we're 1/4 of an inch closer to our side seam, which I like better. So when I draw a hip curve, I'm going to have a nice curve going there. That looks really good. And I can match the back curve a little bit better. I'm going to draw it in pencil now because we're going to end up shaping the waist before we totally commit to that side seam. But we have moved that side seam out, and that's looking really good. We're going to also commit to some of the back measurements. We're going to keep this at 3/4 of an inch. And now you know, for personal fit, you can bring it this way or this way. If you're curvier, you're bringing it here. If you're flatter, you're bringing it back. We're going to commit to our 2 3/4 to get us to the princess seam. Then we have our first dart, which is 1 inch. Our second, our space, it is 1 1/4 before we get to our second dart. And then here's the second dart. That is also 1 inch. And our side seam won't be changing because we're keeping everything the same at 9 1/4 for our waist. So here's our center back to our side seam, 9 1/4. And we have a little bit of a hip drawn in there, but we can draw it with a ruler and firm that up. But I'm still working with pencil. Let me try to bring this hip down. A little bit of a straighter line in the back so I can have a longer curve to match. There we go. Those are looking good. So now we're going to draw the middle of the darts, because each one of these, here and here, and here and here, those are all darts. These are 1 inch darts. These are 1/2 inch darts. Remember, we're working on the back. This is the front. Let's go ahead and continue working on the front. And we're going to draw some of our dart legs. In the front, we're going to go down 3 inches. So from our waistline, mark down 3 inches. And this is between this space that is your dart, and then square down in the middle to the dart tip. So I'm again going to draw the bottom, which is 3 inches. I'm drawing in the space in between the 1/2 inch, and that's the middle of my dart. So I've gone down 3 inches, drawn the bottom, went in the middle, which is 1/4 inch right from either side, so right in the middle, drawing that down, crossing that line. Did the same on the second one. Now we're going to connect our dart legs from the waist to the dart tip. Waist to dart tip. Those look great. Let's do the back. The back, we're going to go down 4 1/2 inches. Draw the bottom. And now draw the middle. These darts are 1 inch, so you're in the middle at 1/2 inch and connect it. Now let's connect these darts. Oh, this pant trouser draft is looking great. We're going to stop here, and I'm going to see you in the next video.